Kirk Cousins broke the 2-mile marker last night with his second 400-yard performance of the season, but that wasn't enough for the Redskins to beat the Cowboys in a game that was gift wrapped for Dallas by the NFL. We'll talk about that coming up on the Hog Style.
Your host, Alex Cease.
Hello and welcome back to a very special post-tryptophan episode of the Hogsty. Alex here with you, and here with me, shielding his eyes from the sun, is Steve Thomas. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
I'm here, and of course we're not shielding our eyes from the sun right this very moment because we're doing yet another
super late
night. Yeah, like we always seem to do. I don't understand how we always get trapped in that. And
yeah.
I'm also very impressed that you were able to do the math necessary to say that Cousins passed the 2-mile marker. And I'd also like to know how many in our audience know what you're talking about, or how many are truly math deficient.
I mean, the odds of... I just kind of looked at the number and I said, wait a minute. That looks like a number that should break down into 2 miles. And sure enough, he's 20 yards over. Like, I had to double check it. I didn't have it. I don't have yardage memorized into miles like you probably do. But I figured I looked at it and said, that's a thing.
Well, yeah, a mile is 280 feet, and
right.
So you divide that by 3, and there's yardage. So
yeah.
He's actually way over 2 miles for a career.
Oh yeah, no. This was just for this year. Is that he broke 2 miles? I think only Drew Brees has ever broke the 3. Don't quote me on that, but that's getting over 5,000 something.
Yeah, Drew Brees had the 5,000-yard season that 1 year.
Right, but anyway, let's talk about the game. I know we really kind of don't want to talk about the game because it's not the kind of game you want to talk about it. I know.
That's why we're here.
It is why we're here. But I want to talk about the thing that annoyed me the most watching the game, and I brought it up right at the top. Sun. How bad was that sunlight in there? And Steve, you told me earlier you've been in that stadium a few times.
Yes.
Is it really that bad when you're in there?
It can be at the wrong time of day, yes, because what the reason is that on the kind of the middle level of that stadium, excuse me, there's glass in both end zones.
Right.
It's not a solid bowl like the old RFK, like FedEx Field is.
Like
there is glass.
Good, well-built stadiums that are made by people who love football, not people who just want money.
Yeah, well, they all want money. I don't know if Jack Kent Cooke was pretty damn money hungry guy too. But point is, if the sun is right at the exact right angle in that stadium, it shines through the glass right through the end zone.
Yeah,
and so that was what was happening yesterday. I love the shot.
Yeah, it was an amazing shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love the shot of, it was on the Hopkins missed 55-yard field goal where the camera panned up and it looked like you were looking at, like a supernova.
Yeah.
Basically.
J.J. Abrams filmed the game from that angle.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, because I know people, it's fun to bash Jerry Jones, and I'm leading the pack for that. I call him a zombie all the time because I literally think he's a Walking Dead character, and there's no way he's living under a traditional, normal human, powers at this point.
No.
So,
but the thing is, he's only like 60. And he just looks like death.
He just looks like he's 160.
Yeah.
But point is, I think this is not some evil Jerry Jones plot.
No.
This is, to my knowledge, and I'm not an expert, okay, and I'm not proclaiming to be an expert on stadium design. I have told you guys before that I have been involved in a couple stadium deals and whatnot, but the design is well out of my...
You're not an architect.
No, I'm not. I'm into financing and that kind of thing.
Right.
But point is, in contracts. But point is, I don't think that there's any specific NFL requirement that the bowl has to be filled in, that they have to guard against the sun. There's nothing like that. And I don't think Jerry Jones had some evil plot. It just happened to work out this way. Because you have to understand, for those of you who haven't been in the stadium, it's probably most of you, this place is massive.
Right.
This place is like God's gift to football stadiums. Okay, it's humongous. It's the fanciest place you'll ever see. The scoreboard in the middle of the field is bigger than it seems on TV. It really is huge. And I mean, look, if that place was the Redskins stadium in Maryland, D.C., or Virginia, we would think it would be awesome.
Oh yeah, and like that. I mean, I obsess a little too much about the Redskins building a new stadium for that reason. Right. Yeah. Whatever they build is going to be one of these ultra modern, luxury, amazing stadiums. Because, I'm sorry, not RFK, Jack Kent Cooke Stadium, it was kind of the last of the, mega bowls.
Yes.
These just put a billion seats around us in a circle and just get as many people in as possible.
Well, there was a reason for that.
Right.
It wasn't so much that Jack Kent Cooke wanted to build a plain stadium. It was that he self-financed the construction of this place.
It's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, he did it kind of on the cheap. Yeah, whereas that's not at all the case for the AT&T Stadium.
Right.
In Texas, the county was involved, and it's just a whole nother situation. But anyway, right. I mean, it's a fabulous stadium, but I think the sun thing was just probably an accident that nobody thought about, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and the only thing you can do to prevent that is not build your field facing east-west, which I guess that's probably what they did, and that's why the sun was coming in right at that angle. But I think a lot of stadiums are built facing east-west anyway, so...
Also, now, I don't know if this plays into it or not, but... immediately next door to that stadium is where the Texas Rangers play, which is the ballpark at Arlington.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that had to do with the layout of the stadium or not, because there's tons and tons of parking around there.
Good point.
Because it services both places. So it's I don't know. That may or may not even be relevant. But point is, it's all of this is just an accident.
Yeah. Well, the two things I'll say on it did impact the game clearly. I mean, Hopkins basically kicked that long field goal blind, which no wonder he missed it. It was probably just a guess and hope that kick it as hard as you can, maybe it'll go through kind of situation. I do know I was listening to Grant and Danny today on the radio, and they were interviewing Cousins, and he apparently had to tell McVay, we got to change our whole play call system until we're not facing the sun, because he wasn't seeing anyone downfield. He was telling him basically just throw screens and check down type things, short passes so I can see who I'm hitting.
Yeah, well, I think obviously the Dallas Cowboy organization is aware of the sun thing by now,
yeah.
And so when they won, because Dallas won the toss,
right?
And so they finagled the sides somehow. Well, actually, that's not right. I'm thinking on the fly here. They won the toss. They took the kickoff, and so the Redskins would have picked the sides,
right?
And so we just.
I
think we out-psyched ourselves, basically.
Well, I mean...
because we could have picked it because the sun is setting in the west, right? And so we could have arranged it so...
I don't know. Does the sun still set in the west?
Yeah, it does. Hell hadn't frozen over yet.
All right.
But point is, I think we psyched ourselves out on that because we could have picked the other way and had Dallas going into the sun for the second quarter, and it might have worked out because the sun set by the time the second half came around. It wasn't an issue anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair point. And we know for the future, always take the ball going the other way.
Well, not always. I mean, it just happened to be that game started at 3:30.
Okay. In a 4:00 game in Dallas Stadium, make sure you're not facing into the sun.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Although it's not like we've played in this stadium before too.
Right.
I don't know why we didn't think about it.
I don't know if we've ever played there at a 4:00 game.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's probably always a 1:00 game.
Well, let's talk about the actual performance of the team on the field outside of their squinting eyes and all that stuff.
let's start right there because we missed a field goal because of the sun.
Right.
And I would argue that that's Jay Gruden's fault. I mean, Dustin Hopkins missed the kick, and Hopkins, to his credit, told the press, "I don't care about that. I'm paid to make kicks." To the end, and he did the right thing. But we here in the media and fake media like we are,
right?
We're paid or not paid to talk about this stuff. And so I think that Jay Gruden probably should have realized that was a very low percentage thing when it's 55 yards anyway. Hopkins' career long is 54 yards, and he's looking directly into the sun. He probably shouldn't have kicked the ball.
I think Hopkins has the leg for it. I've seen him hit 60-yarders at training camp and stuff like that,
and in practice before games too.
Yeah. But I'm with you. Maybe they were better off punting in that situation.
Or just going for. I can't remember how.
Yeah, I don't remember
how
the yardage.
Me neither. But they should have punted it or gone for it. One or the other.
Yeah. But maybe they were also thinking because Kirk can't see down the field, going for it was low percentage too. Then
play the field position and punt the. Punt
I'm
the ball.
with you. The other thing I wanted to talk about with just that half that was the second quarter, right? Of the half.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me look it up. Keep talking while I'm looking it up. Well, I
mean, the thing I wanted to bring up, we came out just dead on our feet to start the game. And
yes.
I didn't know, were you expecting us to be that kind of slow to start? I was kind of expecting it to go the other way where, people would be gassed by the end of the game, not gassed right at the beginning.
No, and it was the second quarter, by the way.
Okay.
For the kick. I think kind of the Redskins fan base sort of underestimated the time problem for this game. I kind of did expect. I didn't expect them to look good. Put it that way.
No.
I thought that they would look kind of sluggish.
And you called it a schedule loss at the beginning.
Yeah, which ended up kind of being what happened.
Yeah,
in a certain sense. So no, I did kind of think they were going to look bad in the beginning. So it kind of played out the way I thought.
Okay.
In that regard.
Okay. I just expected the D to have a little fight to start and, clamp down in the beginning, and then, as...
Well, I think their attitude was there. It was just a physical thing.
Yeah.
If your legs won't move, your legs won't move.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened.
That does kind of feel like what happened, especially against the run early on, that was just brutal. That first drive.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to just hang out with my family because I don't really want to watch all this and be miserable around them. I'll watch it later.
You want to do stats?
Yeah. Why don't you go over some of these stats? I mean, I kind of hinted that Kirk had a very good game.
All right, offensive stats.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, 41 for 53, 449 yards, 8.5 yards average, 3 touchdowns. Quarterback rating of 120.7 on the game. Robert Kelly had an off day, 14 carries, 37 yards, 2.6 yard average, long of 8, but he didn't get too many carries. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Chris Thompson, 4 carries, 17 yards. In the receiving world, Deshaun Jackson was our leading receiver, 4 receptions, 118 yards, including that one long 67-yard touchdown, which we'll talk about. Jordan Reed, who was a superhero, yesterday, 10 receptions, 95 yards on 12 targets, 2 touchdowns, long of 33. Jamison Crowder, 8 receptions, 88 yards. Vernon Davis had 5 receptions, 68 yards. Pierre Garçon went 4 for 43, and it went down from there. Chris Thompson had 5 catches. Maurice Harris had 2. Robert Kelly had 2. Derek Carrier had 1 carry for 4 yards. And so that is offense for today.
Good, impressive passing numbers. I think we can say.
Oh yeah.
Again, Kirk just putting up really great numbers. Though I think we've thrown for 400 yards twice now, and we lost both games. Well,
look how far off the run-pass balance was.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, 53 passes to 19 runs, and even with the caveat that for much of the fourth quarter, probably the 10 minutes of the 15 minutes in the fourth quarter, we were playing catch up and playing hurry up.
It was shootout time, barn burner.
Yeah. But first quarter, 9 passes, 6 runs.
Right.
Second, at the end of the second half, 12 passes, 9 runs. The third quarter, I had to backtrack because I forgot to write them down right at the third quarter, but I think we were at 27 passes, 16 runs, getting totally out of whack at that point.
Yeah, it's a little out of whack, but I would point to 2 things. One, in the first half, even though Kirk was having trouble with the sun that we were talking about, he was very accurate.
Yes.
His completion percentage was really high. They were getting in the backfield against our running game quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I hate abandoning the run. You hate abandoning the run. We all hate abandoning the run. But if you see that as a coach, I can understand why you'd kind of think, hey, let's rely on our passing game.
I think Jay Gruden consistently gives up on it too early.
I think he does too, but I'm saying situationally, this time I can easily see why you would.
Well, with only 9 carries in the second half, I'd argue that, or in the first half, I'd argue that we didn't really know whether the run game was working or not at that point in time. 9 carries isn't enough to establish a run game, particularly against a talented defense.
They stopped us behind the line at least on 4 of those 9 carries.
Yeah, no, I know. Listen, it wasn't a great running day, but that doesn't mean you give up on it.
No,
you know, I don't think.
I mean,
I just think Jay, with his background, I'm not trying to bash Jay, but with his arena ball background and all that stuff, I think that just his mentality, right or wrong, is a little bit. His running seems to be a secondary thing for him, unless he just has to, unless it's just working really well.
I mean, when it is working well, he does go to it. I mean, you can't deny that. It just doesn't work well very often.
Yeah, we're not. We're just not going to be a running team. I mean, just
no.
It's as simple as that.
It's still not a running league as much as it used to be. And,
no.
So that's part of it too.
Well, let's talk about Kirk Cousins' performance. So,
all right.
I mean, because you mentioned it, this 449 yards was his best. The most yardage he's thrown for the season.
No, second most, I think, because I was looking.
It was his. No, it was his first.
What was the other 400-yard game? It was Detroit, right?
I'm going to tell you here in just a second.
But yeah, 400-plus yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He has been much better about the interceptions again. He's a second-half quarterback. Oh, Cincinnati.
It was Cincinnati,
okay.
And it was 446 yards in Cincinnati and 449
Oh, okay,
Dallas.
so they're very close.
Yeah.
Very close. But, yeah, and here's what impresses me about Kirk. 3 primetime games in a row now, he has just shown up and played really well. You can say Cincinnati was a primetime game in London.
Right.
And then last week against Green Bay, and then this week. Now,
I would say national games.
Okay,
Cincinnati wasn't a primetime game.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It was a featured game. How about that?
Yes. There you go.
I mean, he's going to earn that big contract. And there was some stuff out there today about, what that salary might be, but it was all just rumor. There was there was nothing concrete. There was just speculation, really, not even rumor.
I mean, the hang up with Kirk, it's the team can't score.
Yeah.
5 trips to the red zone, 6 trips inside Dallas territory at least, and we got 2 touchdowns out of it.
Yeah.
And this is a consistent problem all year long. And so, yes, Kirk Cousins puts up tons of yardage. He's kind of the LA Clippers of the new LA Clippers of in the NFL. I mean, it's really flashy, scores a lot of points. And you got Blake Griffin and Chris Paul scoring the ball, but at the end of the day,
now which is
they lose.
Kirk? Is he Blake Griffin or Chris Paul? I would think Jordan
I guess
Reed
he'd be
is Blake Griffin, right?
Yeah, I think Kirk would have to be Chris Paul because he's the point guard.
Sure.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But my point is, and it's not a perfect analogy, but my point is, he's racking up all these yardage totals, and as we discussed in the preview show, it's not all just checkdowns anymore. It was in the beginning of the year, but he's legitimately going downfield now.
Right.
But point is, you can rack up all the yardage you want, but at the end of the day, unless you score points and win games and win in the playoffs, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And that's my problem. I think people are we're going to talk about this on a later show, and so we're not going to get into too much into this today just for the listeners' sake, but I think the listeners are getting a little bit ahead of themselves when it comes to contract stuff, because we haven't won anything.
Right.
We aren't scoring enough points, and the reason we're not scoring enough points is because the quarterback isn't getting the team in the end zone once we get near the goal line, and that is on Kirk.
I agree. I agree that is a lot of that is on him. I still maintain that a huge issue is play calling down there in the red zone, where we did run it, but we ran a freaking wildcat play. which...
Can we just stop right there?
Yeah.
It's...
The Wildcat doesn't work.
Well, okay. For the benefit of the people who don't quite understand this, the Wildcat works if the Wildcat quarterback is a threat to throw. Okay?
Right.
The purpose of the Wildcat is to confuse the defense because you're snapping it to someone they're not ready for, and then they have to wonder whether that person is going to run it or throw it. And so a guy like Robert Griffin,
right?
It would be a perfect Wildcat quarterback in a different universe.
Right.
You know what? Let's forget about Robert Griffin.
Let's not use the Griffin Tebows because they're just quarterbacks who can run. I mean,
yeah, like maybe Antoine Randall L.
Right.
That a guy who was a quarterback in college. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you have a threat. For a split second, that's all you need. Well, Robert Kelly isn't a threat to do anything but run the ball.
Right.
And it didn't catch anybody off balance at all.
No,
it didn't work. It was a dumb play call by the coaching staff.
I heard somebody point out today. I don't remember who. A quarterback splitting out wide is as useless as any other player. Like you might as well just not have a guy on the field there because he doesn't do anything.
No, and you'd think. I mean, I wouldn't want to risk my quarterback doing that because. Right. Free shot against the quarterback. He's not the quarterback. Let's, knock him on his butt.
And there's so many good trick plays we could run. We have a guy like Crowder. He's speedy. You could have him motion into the backfield really quickly and hand him the ball
reverse.
Yeah.
Run a reverse, maybe. Yeah.
Something like that. I mean...
It was a dumb call.
Yeah,
There's no doubt about it.
I don't understand that call. I don't think anybody understands that call. But, hey, they are at least trying to run the ball in the red zone for a change.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess so, if you want to consider that. But the big picture point here is that we all love the fact that Kirk is racking up all this yardage.
Right.
I am to the point where I've looked at I've done enough of an analysis of what he's done to conclude that it's not just him checking down and getting a ton of yak.
No.
He is responsible for a lot of this yardage. Yes, part of it's the play calling because we pass so much. He's just going to naturally have a lot of yardage. And yes, I recognize that the guy who everybody hates, Kean Fahey, who was on our show, is of the minority opinion that he misses a lot of throws. He's bailed out by his receivers. I get all that.
By the way, I don't know if you've been tracking it because you don't follow the local media as much. He's in like the biggest war with the entire radio station 106.7 on Twitter.
Yeah, I've kind of caught a little bit of it.
It is hilarious to watch.
I guess it seemed to me there was some kind of confusion about whether he was going to come on Grant and Danny's show, and then he didn't, and so now they're calling each other names and blocking each other.
Basically. And Bullock's involved somehow. It's very fun. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, he was good enough to come on our show. Yeah,
well, we were nice to him.
Yeah.
We weren't jerks to him. We said, "Hey, Kean, will you come on our show and talk about your cousin's article?" He went,
right.
"Yeah, sure."
I don't know what the producers of Grant and Danny said to him.
No, I know. Yeah. He was great on our show.
Yeah, he was
very
very
nice.
nice.
To agree with him, but he did have a rationale for his opinions. You don't have to agree with him. My big problem with what he said is he was measuring catchable balls, and that was a subjective stat, and so it wasn't an objective stat, and that was his big thing. But point is,
right?
There's at least one opinion that he's overrated.
Sure,
and that Kean is of a minority opinion. I don't think he's overrated. I just think. I don't think you can call this a guy who racks up a lot of yards but doesn't score points and has never won a playoff game. You can't call a guy like that a top 10 quarterback, and you can't pay him like a top 10, like a top 5 quarterback.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the guys who have gotten paid real quick. Andrew Luck got a massive deal.
Yes.
He right now to me looks like a bottom 5 quarterback more than a top.
Part of Andrew Luck is that he's got a crappy team around him.
Right, but that's all. I mean, but they went 12-4 a year ago or 2 years ago, wasn't it? I mean,
well, it was 2 years ago because he was hurt last year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Andrew Luck has taken a nosedive, but I think that he's got the arm, got the talent. There's just a lot of things going on around him.
I just wish someone would give him a razor. He has the worst beard in the world. But,
it's terrible. Isn't it awful?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so another guy who's got a huge contract, Eli Manning. I think if you're talking about the number Kirk wants to hit, supposedly, it's basically what Eli Manning's making, which is around $24 million a year.
Well, I mean, Eli, he's won Super Bowls.
Right.
He's an elite quarterback. He's making 19 points. He's making 24.2 this year, 19.7 next year.
Okay.
He had what was his percentage guarantee here?
He had a big
he had
deal
60
initially.
Well, he had 64% guaranteed at signing, and then another up to 77% was guaranteed later.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a big deal, but again, that's a guy who's won Super Bowls, but if you're talking numbers, I mean, Eli's career numbers over many more years than Cousins has played and many more games.
Right.
But he's a career 59 before this season, career 59.3 completion percentage.
Right. His numbers don't blow you away. That's
quarterback rating 83.5.
Yeah.
I just think he's an outlier a little bit because of the Super Bowls.
Right.
He's not really the best comparison, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it gets tricky to me is, I mean, do you look at potential? Do you look at, guys who have that track record? I mean, Kirk is on pace for throwing for 5,000 yards, and I don't care if you say it's the system or what. Only a handful of guys have ever even hit that number.
Well, he's not really on pace for 5,000. He's on pace for over 4, not 5.
Well, he's getting close. Let's put it that.
If you pass for 450 yards every game, you might get close. But
yeah.
Recall how in the article I wrote about this, which is on our site. It's called Kirk Cousins and His Coming King Size Contract, because I really like alliteration. What I did for that, I know, it was like, okay, I got to do something to make this interesting. It's like thousands of just words of just numbers.
Yeah.
But point is, I grouped these quarterbacks into elite and good, and then compared Kirk's peers.
Right.
That's kind of how it's broken down in here, and I don't want to get into all these details, but the chunk of players who are the good quarterbacks, these are by and large guys who were given huge contracts and didn't measure up. And that's what you want to stay away from. And neither of us are quarterbacks, Svengalis, and so we don't know.
Right. I mean, it is a position, though, that I think everyone feels like they are a quarterback Svengali, as you said, just because it's what we all focus on. 99% of viewers, all we're watching is the quarterback. Most people aren't doing what, our friend Robbie does, where they're watching the O-line. I remember a good friend of mine, he was a high school football player and just a real student of the game. He took a long time watching football with me and saying, don't focus on the quarterback, just watch what everyone else is doing around the quarterback. And it's tough to do. I always fall back to watching the quarterback, even when I've been taught that a little bit. But
I mean, it's good advice for sure. But I think maybe we ought to save this whole discussion for another show.
Yeah.
To do a little bit better in depth on it. But suffice to say, Kirk Cousins had a really good game from the goal line to the 20-yard line.
Yeah,
we'll say that much.
That's been the story of the offense all year.
And I think we got to. But before you go off offense, it also needs to be said that Jay Gruden, inexplicably tried 2 onside kicks.
Yeah.
I get the second one, we had no choice. But the first one was dumb. You got to think, to me, what is the best percentage shot here? It's a really low percentage shot to get
I think
an onside
I've heard
kick.
The number, and it's something like 1 in 10.
It's really low percentage. And so now you're giving the ball on a short field to a team that's run up and down the field on us all day long.
Right.
I think it was a dumb call. I think if Sean were here and Sean's out, with Thanksgiving stuff right now.
And
Sean might like it, though.
I'm the only one who will ever defend a crazy special teams play, and I can't really defend it that much, only to say, if you are the special teams coach, one of your jobs every week is to look at the film and say, hey, these guys are really going to be you could catch them off guard with an onside kick. And you put that down in your notes, and you have it there for the coach to see, and you have it there for everyone to see. Hey, these guys might be someone we can trick with this.
Well, let me give you guys a little bit. For those of you who haven't played football, you do practice special teams in football.
Yeah,
there's one day a week typically where you practice, and you will line up. I don't remember doing it even necessarily every week, but every once in a while you do practice this onside kick thing. Mm-hmm. So they're not just winging it, but it's just such a low percentage thing, and I just think it was the wrong team to do that against, given how well their offense is going.
Situationally, I agree with you. Like if you're going to do it at any point, you do it on your very first kick.
Right.
Pull the old Andy Reid trick where you elect to kick off or defer. You know how it is. And then you kick an onside kick to start the game.
Or maybe you do it against like the Detroit Lions or somebody that's not going to run up and down the field on you. The other thing, it must be said before we move on to defense, is we really had a bad clock management issue at the end of the first half. The final Redskins drive. If you guys recall,
are you talking about the Garcon going down the 24 seconds left? Third down.
Well, yeah, it's 25 seconds left, and then they let the clock run all the way down to 11 seconds, and then decide to take a timeout. Mm-hmm. If they'd taken a timeout right up front, that would have changed the nature of the play calling, because there would have been enough time to run the ball. There would have been enough time to have a wider selection of plays. Instead, you ran it all the way down to 11 seconds. You could have run the fourth down play all the way down, and then kicked a field goal if you wanted. But I thought it was a very poor clock management decision.
If you're going to do that, then you're doing the whole rush the field goal unit onto the field for the field goal attempt, which is not easy to do. And someone has that number, and I don't know what it is, how many seconds it takes for you to do that. So I mean,
but they could have passed the ball again.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I mean, I think it was dumb.
I just think people are. I mean, the dumb thing is you should always keep more than one timeout left. I mean, we wasted a timeout at one point because of Moses running onto the field late to miss a field goal.
Yes,
right. So
that cost us a timeout. We iced our own kicker.
Yeah,
did you notice that?
Yeah, I know. Morgan Moses iced the kicker, and first off, if he's an ailing tackle, I don't know why he's out there on the field goal unit anyway. You need to get him as much rest as possible.
Just get Winston Painter out there for the one play. He only has to hold his block for a split second.
Right. Exactly.
Throw him out there. Yeah.
But yeah.
I just think it was kind of funny that we iced Dustin. First of all, Dustin Hopkins told us that he doesn't care about that. And if you recall, he said, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
He's not been having a good couple.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah. And it's indoor games, too, where he's struggled, which is odd.
I kind of had to give him a pass a little bit for the Bengals game just because both kickers struggled.
Yeah.
And there was apparently a field issue. But, the bottom line is he hasn't kicked very well recently.
No.
For whatever
I
that's
actually
worth.
give him a pass on the super deep field goal this game.
It was a dumb. Yeah.
That's a crapshoot. Even in the good conditions, 55 yards is a crapshoot. So,
but the first kick, the one we iced him, that's on him.
Yes, agreed. And we lost a timeout for it, which makes it even dumber.
Right.
But speaking of dumb, let's go to the defense real quick.
Speaking of dumb,
let's
go to defense. All right.
I said it earlier, they kind of looked gassed from the get-go. We couldn't stop the run at all. I think fans maybe were getting a little excited about our defense, but you and I kind of both knew we went up against a couple softies on offense the last few weeks.
Yes.
And we were kind of playing with fool's gold if you were looking at defense and thinking it was all shiny at this point.
Yeah, and there's fans out there who don't, who didn't really realize that, and they kind of expected to turn around, but we knew because we had been paying attention.
Right.
I'd like to, I guess, let's start with one thing here.
Yeah, if you got something you want to focus on. Yeah,
I do. And there's been a fan just uprising against Joe Barry, and what I heard...
there's 6 fan uprisings. I was wondering which fan uprising you'd bring about.
Yeah, well, what I keep hearing is, fire Joe Barry, fire Joe Barry. But I'd like to ask those people, what would another defensive coordinator have done differently in this situation? The truth of the matter is, and I'm not a big fan of Joe Barry, and I didn't really agree with the hire at the time, but the defensive game plans, and Jamal pointed this out a couple weeks ago too, when we had Jamal on.
Right.
The defensive game plans have gotten more creative.
They have. He has slowly adapted to what his roster has. And now my only criticism of him is he is really slow to make a change. And he is very public about saying, I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to go away from Norman playing on the right side or the left side. I'm not going to go away from this guy starting over this guy, and then he finally concedes and you see slight improvement. But
but my point is,
like how many
scheme...
more weeks are we going to see Kendall Fuller as the slot corner?
Oh God!
Until he accepts that it's not working. That's my issue.
Well, there's a group. Let's tell you what. Let's finish Joe Barry and we'll get to Kendall because we have another Kendall discussion. What my point with Joe Barry is, our defensive line can't stop the run.
No.
And our linebackers can't stop the run. Compton and Foster and Baker and Ziggy Hood and those guys,
right?
Can't stop the run. And so, those guys are mediocre players. They're not great players. What other, there's no solution. What scheme would have? No, there's not a solution to make mediocre players look good.
No, and I agree with you completely. I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to switch up the entire defensive scheme to try and mask it? Because I don't really know what that would look like. I mean, it's not like you can, not go with less defensive linemen. We only played 2 defensive linemen most of the time.
I mean, if you want to blame somebody for the defensive line, you got to blame Scott McLuhan.
Right.
He's the one that has, that's kind of put a Band-Aid on it.
Right.
And, Wade Phillips was, is apparently the panacea to this. But I don't think Wade is going to take these guys and turn a bottom 5 defensive front statistically against a run and turn them into good.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
I mean, he might get guys in a little bit better position, but they still got to make the plays. And here's the thing. You see Will Compton get into the right position a lot of times, but he still can't make the play because he's the only one there a lot of times.
Yeah, and Will Compton's limited athletically. Let's do stats real fast. I forgot to do them.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott was kind of Dak Prescott today in terms of his performance. He was 17 of 24, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, quarterback rating of 108.9.
Very efficient.
Which is... Well, that's almost exactly dead on his
average,
season.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott was 20 carries, 97 yards, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 4.8 yards per carry. Our old friend Alfred Morris had a carry for 12 yards, which really makes me sad. Dak Prescott himself ran 8 carries, 39 yards.
Right. And then they had that end around.
The big, the big story, of course, was Dez Bryant, against Josh Norman. Dez Bryant had 5 receptions, 72 yards, 14.4 yards per catch, long of 26.
By the way, people are making a lot about that. And by the way, 2 of those catches, Norman was not him. They
were out of the slot, and that was Kendall Fuller was the one that gave up the 26-yard catch.
Right.
If people didn't notice. Cole Beasley was 5 for 56. Jason Witten was 3 for 33, had a quiet day. Ezekiel Elliott again, 2 catches, 23 yards. So that's receiving. The Dallas as a team rushed for 30 carries, 163 yards.
Right.
So that's Dallas.
And now, I mean, that's what they do. They are a ground and pound team. We actually didn't. If you look at those numbers, you would say we did an okay job, but they had short fields.
I didn't say we did a good job. I think we did a terrible job against the run.
No, I'm saying if you were to look at just those numbers and say they're a running team, we did okay. But they were getting the ball midfield a lot of times. That hurt us. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else we can say other than there's nothing we can do this season that will solve the problem.
No.
And
firing Joe Barry in the middle of the season isn't going to do a damn thing.
No.
Not going to matter.
Now,
the problem is...
I will say this. I had this thought earlier. If somebody better is available to us in the offseason, if Marvin Lewis is let go from the Bengals, I would snatch him up in a minute.
I think Marvin Lewis is going to be snatched up as a head coach, but I agree with you.
I'm just using him as an example.
Yeah. But, if we project to the offseason, I think it would be a drastic mistake not to focus the draft almost exclusively on defense to the maximum extent possible. They really need a ton of help on defense. They need a ton of help on the defensive line. Yep. We needed an inside linebacker. I mean, we all love Sua Cravens, but he's not a traditional inside linebacker.
No, I would like to see him move to strong safety long term myself.
Yeah, he's just not. He's not going to be the defensive signal caller, back there like Will Compton is, because that's just not him. And we need safeties desperately. So, there needs to be a focus on that. But so Ezekiel Elliott,
right?
I think we have to talk about him. As much as I hate his cutoff shirts, and much as I hate his, eating thing, it just makes me want to punch him.
And
but
he's not it sounds like he's not a good dude, but they've swept it under the rug kind of thing.
Yeah, and what Alex is talking about is that he's got pending domestic violence thing out there. He's not going to get charged criminally, but the NFL doesn't care about that. And oddly enough, his attorney kind of did him no favors by raising the issue to the NFL. And so the NFL is looking at that, and it's not beyond the realm of possible he gets suspended, when the NFL concludes whatever investigation they're doing. But the point is, if you put all that stuff aside, dude is legit.
Oh, yeah.
He really is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just the Dallas offensive line. I think he's legit. I think he has speed. He has great vision, tremendous vision. He's got power. He runs low.
Yeah.
He's a tremendous running back, and it's a darn shame he's on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, and I've one of the reasons I've said I agree with you. Next draft, I really want to focus a lot on the defense, but there are like two running backs who look like they could be the same caliber, and I see what Dallas has, and I'm just like, I want that for us.
And those two running backs are whom?
Well, I've heard about who's our buddy Mo on the Insider keeps on talking about some guy from the Crimson Tide that he's nuts about.
Well, our buddy Mo is nuts about Alabama, period.
But
if you go back to the history of Alabama running backs, they've been kind of lacking.
That's true. The one who I'm really in on is the guy from Stanford. Christian McCaffrey, I think is
McCaffrey, yeah. The other guy is Leonard Fournette.
Fournette,
he's incredible.
There's another one
with LSU.
Yeah,
but I don't know, man. I mean,
yeah,
I think Rob Kelly showed a lot of promise.
Yeah,
he didn't have a good game. It happens. But if he kind of seizes the job here in the next 5 weeks, unless some just a gift falls in our lap, I really think McGloin needs to focus on defense. And we can get into this whole, best player available thing versus need, because that makes me want to hang myself when we have this debate.
I've always said best player available at a position of need. That's always been my kind of philosophy.
Well, here's a little insight into how GMs act, and all of them. Okay, I'm going to tell everybody this.
They lie.
No, well, they do lie, and so. But that wasn't my point. But they do lie, and so when the media says, "Okay, Mr. GM, what's your strategy?" They're going to go. They're not going to tell you their strategy. They're going to go, well, we're just going to pick the best player for the team.
Right.
And that's what all of them say. But how they really do it is they have a set of criteria. They mix the criteria together, and they come up with a board.
Right.
And one criteria is need. Another criteria is other things. It's all a part of the No GM
Scott's got a criteria that just is football player, and it's just got play R.
But he does need figures into the calculus to some extent.
Sure.
He just doesn't focus on it as much as others. That's all. Anyway, maybe the draft is we're the beauty of this season is we don't have to focus on the draft.
No, we're not out of it yet. I mean, I do love focusing on the draft just because I'm one of those weird nerdy people who loves.
I love the draft too, but I don't like to look at it until we're out of the playoffs.
I mean, I think it's safe to say we need to draft defensive guys up front just because of Ezekiel Elliott. Long term, that is something we have to look at.
Let's address Josh Norman and Des Bryant again real fast because we kind of touched on it.
Let's touch on that and then wrap it up.
Okay. What we saw on Thanksgiving Day was Joe Barry allow Josh Norman to follow Des Bryant to the left and the right side.
Right.
It was he was isolated on Des Bryant almost all day. The main yardage
for Des,
impact plays for Des came out of the slot. The 26-yard play was on Kendall Fuller.
Right.
Kendall Fuller's the one that let him spring. They got in the big confrontation after the game, and Des started mouthing off. He's going to post a film. The film that he's talking about, there was one play where Des ran a post from the left side, and it was a really long pattern. And at the tail end of it, Dez shook Norman.
Right.
Norman bounced the wrong way, but that was,
But the ball didn't go to
wasn't
him,
thrown.
so.
The ball didn't go to him, and, it was well after. It was such a long way down the field that it was well after the read was already made. So keep crying, Dez. But I thought Josh did a really good job on Dez. Considering it was man coverage all day, he was right there with him the whole day. So I was proud of Dez. You teased Kendall Fuller.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Kendall Fuller.
All right, really quick, because we're way over.
Yeah. Are we?
But Kendall Fuller. I've heard a lot of people talking about Kendall Fuller today. I think you need to not necessarily shut him down completely, but you need to take him out of the starting lineup and start easing him back into games a little more wisely than they're doing. Because at this point, I'm worried about his confidence.
Yeah.
I'll put just that simply.
Now, there's a group of people out there who are film experts who keep telling us that Kendall Fuller's doing pretty well. I don't see it. I don't pretend to be that much. I do know a little bit about the cornerback position, but I don't pretend to be an expert at it. Our friend Adam, is one that says Fuller's doing pretty well. I don't see it. What I've seen is a guy who's gotten burned by Stephon Diggs. He's gotten burned by Cole Beasley. He's gotten burned by Des Bryant.
If a good job is trailing behind a guy for about 5 or 10 feet, then he's doing a good job.
Didn't he give up a touchdown to Jordy Nelson?
I don't remember.
The slot last week? It wasn't Jordy Nelson. It was to someone else.
Yeah,
but
I don't remember. But he's been getting beat left and right.
He's a young player who's developing and who's learning.
Right.
And he's not doing a good job right now.
I think the solution for this season might be you have to start putting Breland in the slot more. Put Dunbar or even let Fuller try the outside.
Greg Toller, let Greg Toller play the outside guy.
Yeah. Well,
now next week isn't the time to do it.
No,
because next week you're facing the Arizona Cardinals, who've got 2 elite receivers on that team. So
but maybe that is the time to make sure that Breland's moving into the slot from time to time and put someone else on the outside.
Real quick injuries.
Yep.
You have another point?
No. Go ahead. Give me the injuries.
Real quick injuries. Injuries were Jordan Reed was the big one. He has a partially separated shoulder that he played through. Prognosis is unknown for next week.
10 catches without a good shoulder.
Jameson Crowder tweaked an ankle, but he came back in the game. Looks like he's fine. Bashad Breeland had a shoulder. Looks like he's fine. Anthony Lanier was the guy who was probably the other guy who was hurt. He had a lower leg contusion. Brandon Scherf was banged up. Laval was banged up, and that was the extent of injury. So the one to watch really is Reed.
Right.
We will have an update for you on the game preview episode.
Yep. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Steve, I have one final big question for you. Okay. What was your favorite food item you had on Thanksgiving?
Beyond the meat, I'm always a meat guy.
Oh, sure.
So I always kind of go for dark meat. I guess I'd go for turkey. Dark meat.
Yeah.
Turkey, dark meat.
We had filet mignon, by the way. If you're talking about meat,
isn't that kind of un-Thanksgiving to have filet mignon?
Well, we had it with the turkey. We didn't just have filet.
Okay.
Multiple meats. Meat meals are the best types of meals.
Yeah, that's true.
I used to always joke, I want to have every meal have at least 5 dead animals in it. But no, for me, the best thing, my mom's stuffing. My mom makes an amazing cornbread mushroom stuffing, so love that. Because then you just pile gravy and turkey all over it, and it's delicious. So
it's not a day to worry about your diet.
No, it isn't. All right, so final thing, game ball. Who's your game ball?
Oh, gosh. Kirk Cousins got to get the game ball. There's no doubt. I hate to give game balls in a losing effort.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I'm gonna rescind that. Deshaun Jackson, 118 yards. We hadn't seen a good Deshaun Jackson game in a while. I gave Kirk Cousins a game ball last week, so I'm going to give it to D-Jax for it was a bad pass by Kirk on that deep ball.
Sure.
It was drastically underthrown, but Jackson got so open on that play that it didn't matter. So Deshaun Jackson gets a game ball for me.
I'm going to go Jordan Reed, 10 catches. He had 2 touchdowns, right?
Yes, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a great day. So
it is a great day.
I'm going to say Jordan Reed gets a game ball, and hopefully he can get one next week. And hopefully we'll see you all out there next week. Keep following us. at thehogsty.com, at thehogsty on Twitter, Facebook. We need to get on Instagram. We should talk about something about that.
Maybe we'll do that not on the air.
Yeah, off the air. That's an off the air conversation.
Yeah, not an on the air conversation.
No, but it just came to my mind. Everyone's on Instagram now. But just keep following us on social media and keep giving us positive reviews on iTunes. And I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
See you later.